Hey guys, and welcome back to this episode of Digital Coach. Today I'm joined, as mentioned, by Dan Lawrence. How you doing, Dan?
Good, thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me on. Hope all is well with you, bud.
Yeah, good. Good to see you. But I mean, first and foremost, how are you finding it? How are you getting on? Everything all right during this COVID crisis?
Health-wise, all is well, and obviously, look, it's far from ideal from a business point of view, but I kind of adapted and pivoted early and made some changes to the business model. I ceased in-person coaching a lot earlier than most, just as a precautionate measure. My parents are a lot older, and I try and do as much as I can for them. So I just thought, God forbid, if anything did happen, I didn't want that to be all on me. So I stopped that early on and thought, how can I, change the business and pivot slightly moving forwards? And I have done that, and it's worked pretty well for me personally.
Cool. So what happened? Did you just see that people were locking down and just thought, do you know what, this is going to happen here, I'm going to start taking a step back? Or how did you make that decision?
Exactly that, yeah. So probably, I think it was around 12 to 14 days before I saw the last person via social media to kind of cease in-person coaching. I just thought it's not worth the risk for me, and also got the vibe from some of my clients as well that they were quite hesitant because in essence, and we still are massively in the unknown, but at that time, very much like, what the hell is going on here? So just as a precautionate measure, I thought, look, I'm financially in an okay position. My clients are all set up. I'm going to pull this back and just see where it goes from here, because I can't put anyone around me at risk.
No, I mean, I remember the last day, just to kind of touch on it, when we were kind of shutting the studios down, we had some trainers that were like, my clients are fine, they're just going to sign a waiver. And I remember it can't have been the last day, maybe a couple of days from the end, but a client was walking into the studio, I'll never forget it, and was kind of like, can I go near this person? Have you got anything to wash my hands? But I mean, we've all as fitness professionals had to pivot. But this podcast is obviously about digital coaching, which we'll obviously get into. But as always, when I've got coaches like you on the platform, I just love to kind of talk shop and talk about, your methodology, and, what you're doing. So I know that you're always putting out a lot of educational pieces. So guys that are listening to this, check out Perform365. But you always talk about your big rocks. Can you maybe tell us a bit about that when you're going into programming, etc.?
Yeah, for sure, Ben. I think for me, simplicity wins, and my big rocks around, training fundamentals and high performance are number one, training, obviously, providing a sufficient stimulus and stressor upon the system to allow for positive adaptations to occur, whatever that may be in terms of where the individual is starting at. So that would be number one. Nutrition, which obviously fits hand in glove with the training piece there. So that's obviously paramount as well to fuel the training sessions and obviously be aligned with the body composition or performance related goals that the individual has. Recovery as well, as much as I've just said about having a stressor. Yeah. You need to be fueled to train. You need to provide the stressor, but then you need to allow recovery to ensure positive adaptations occur. So there's the kind of big three, with, hydration, sleep, it all feeds into the same one, being the fourth one there, but also all encompassing that and kind of over that as an umbrella is mindset. And all of those sound great on paper, but actually they need to be carried out into practice and into reality. And that comes and starts at the mind and putting some systems in place around that. Something else I kind of feed into alongside the big rocks is once we have those in place, we then look at kind of daily non-negotiables that might feed into that to ensure that these big rocks happen on a day-to-day basis. It's all well and good, having a goal. So what we tend to say, once we set a goal, winners and losers have the same goal, but it's all about your systems and structure that allow you to achieve that outcome. And that's where the magic lies, really.
Yeah, I mean, the more I speak to coaches and this is not blowing smoke up your ass, but coaches of your stature that really take their job passionately, educate, the more I see so many good trainers have those structures in place around obviously the gym, but the coaching element, the coaching side of things of making that client understand that winning and losing is all about systems, processes and hitting daily targets. So I'm guessing you do this also for your general population and also the athletes, or there's a similar approach. Is that right?
Absolutely. Firstly, it starts as they are both humans, so the fundamentals and high performance habits remain the same and consistent, whether they are a general population client or whether they are an elite level athlete. Obviously, there are certain nuances around the programming piece and around the stressor piece and recovery strategies from an elite level athlete. We tend to say start where your feet are. So if I have provided the same program and the same stress to an elite level athlete that I then gave to a general population client with a relatively low training age, that would obviously be probably suboptimal, and they would break down. And in the same breath, if I gave someone relatively new to the gym environment program to an elite level athlete, that wouldn't be enough of a stressor to allow for the positive adaptations to occur. So the systems remain, the big rocks remain. Let's use one of my boxes as an example. Training is definitely one of the big rocks there for sure. Nutrition plays such a pivotal role because, in essence, especially in the boxing, we're not just fueling performance, we're also trying to make weight on the other end of the continuum. So absolutely. So we have to adopt a high and low strategy from a fueling point of view. Because otherwise, if we just try and fuel performance, they're not going to fight because they're not going to be able to make it. So that's something that we have to look at. But the big one for me, especially with the elite level athletes, is recovery. And especially working in, combat sports, it's one of the big rocks and one of the big pieces we look at, because these guys and girls, are going at it 100 miles an hour all the time. I will never have to tell them to work harder. What I try and do, and bring some research-backed methods in, is to pull back slightly and say, actually, we don't need to go, excuse the language, but balls to the wall on every single session. There's certain sessions where we can pull back a little bit and work on some other qualities that are then going to feed into the end outcome on a macro level of elite performance.
Yeah, amazing. So, we'll get into it, obviously, but guys that are listening to this, especially you kind of newer trainers, Dan has a lot of education that's going to be coming out, that's already out there. So we'll discuss that later on, but do check that out as well through the Perform365 platform and also his new platform that I'll get him to kind of introduce. So diving into digital, you mentioned you pivoted quite early. And, tell us a bit about that. Kind of what have you been doing with regards to, let's call it online training for now?
Yeah, an opportunity presented itself to me, Ben, just prior to the lockdown. Actually, I was incredibly fortunate. One of my roles is head of performance with Matchroom Boxing, and Sky Sports and Matchroom got in contact, and so they wanted to run this new program going live on Sky.
Oh yes.
And this is me well out of my comfort zone, to be quite frank. I've never done anything like that before. So we got this in, as I say, literally just before lockdown, and we started a program called Fighting Fit, which was home workouts to be televised on Sky, and it was really well received. And actually, it was great as well. It kind of filled a void for me, and it gave me, I suppose, a little bit of purpose, and it gave me a bit of drive and some positivity through these times. So that was the initial positive just prior to lockdown, as mentioned. And then something that I developed as well, I saw a bit of an opportunity after a couple of weeks into this whole lockdown period. There was, the potential consumer or client has been, I suppose, sport for choice with the offering available via social channels in terms of live workouts and, interaction and engagement from trainers and other people who are, putting content out there.
Yeah.
That said, Ben, I'm big on structure. I'm big on outcome-led goals and, putting the steps in place to reach those outcomes. And I'm also big on it not being a complete one-size-fits-all approach and stress management, as mentioned with the boxes, the high and low days. So that needs to be, carried out with the everyday athlete as well. And doing all of these, 100 burpees, 100 jump squats, and all of this crazy high-intensity training 5-6 days a week, people are just going to break down. So then I thought, okay, there's going to be a problem here. A problem will arise over a coming weeks. They might be able to tolerate it for a week or two, but people are going to need a little bit more structure to their training and needed to be a little bit more individualized. So I developed something called the Ultimate Home Workout Guide, which could be done with minimal equipment. Good to have a pair of dumbbells, which a lot of people did invest in quite early on.
You couldn't get them on Argos. They just sold out.
I know, shocking. It's they also put their prices up, a lot of the companies as well. I suppose they saw an opportunity there, but a lot of people did get some kit in, which was great. And yes, this guide I put together, it took me a few weeks to really dial it in and get it right. I think, as you're well aware, Ben, I've got pretty high standards, so I didn't want to just put any old thing out there. But what it does, it tried to educate people around stress management, around progressive overload, around structuring their training weeks and kind of working out what they should be doing, and still allowing them to do these high intensity lives, which are great, 1 or 2 times a week instead of the 6 or 7 times a week or a couple of times a day. So they then break down. So that was something that, if I'm honest, Ben, it was a blessing in disguise because it gave me purpose and drive. I'm big on, as I say, outcomes, but I'm also big on setting a goal and trying to go for it. So my goal was, I've got to get this out. I've got to get this out in a certain time frame, and it's got to be of a standard and add value to the potential audience and potential consumers. So that was a bit of a blessing in disguise for me, and again, filled a gap and filled a void for me as well.
Yeah, amazing. So there's one for you as well. So you kind of create a program to get the program out, right? Which again, I've talked about this a lot, how I still see certain trainers and still speaking to certain trainers when we're speaking to them on the Remote Coach platform, and they're just kind of still frozen on where to start, or they are still thinking that the gyms will be open soon, so let's just not bother. And it's just, for me, it's like, I just keep telling them, get something done and get out there, get starting, with the virtual side of things. So, okay, so we spoke about coaching. I know that you've been doing online coaching for what, a few years now?
Yeah, so we've got a company called P365 Online Coaching, which, does what it says on the tin, so to speak. We work with people worldwide, globally, which has just blown my mind, the power of social media, that we've got clients in Australia, India, Kuwait, all over, which is absolutely incredible. So we've got some systems that we can use there. And that's been going really well, especially through these times as well. I think people, as I've alluded to, they go onto these social channels and do these live workouts, but there does come a point where they need something a little bit more individualized. So that's where, at first, I didn't promote it, I didn't do anything, and then almost waited for the right time to then say, by the way, guys, we do have this platform available, and we had this available for a long while, that can really cater for you if you do want something a little bit more individualized. So we've got that, but we've also, with the existing clients that I see in a one-on-one capacity, we've used Remote Coach, which has been great for us.
Awesome.
And it's been good. I'll be honest, Ben, I wanted to use this time to become better. I've got a growth mindset, and I wanted to, invest in a couple of mentors, invest in a lot of books, a lot of audibles, a lot of courses. And I didn't want to just go into, dare I say it, the monotony of the day-to-day of just training people continuously. I thought, no, that's probably not what I want to be doing right now. But in the same breath, I still need to cater for the clients who need me through these times. So I capped it at 12 sessions a week in terms of remote coaching sessions.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to work on these other projects and things that have been on the back burner on the shelf for a while. It allowed me to, get those out and get working on them, which has been great.
It's so important. I can only, or just see, the growth from me personally as well. I took a step back myself, and Harry, who I've also had on this podcast, who owned Number One Fitness, back in 2000, and I want to say 17, we made a conscious decision to stop being on the gym floor and start focusing on the business. We were doing the 35, 40 sessions a week in our own studio, and we just realized that we weren't going to get that growth of the business. So again, totally feel that's such a good point for you guys listening, that you need time to focus not only on your business, but also to think about the focus of your business. Take that time away. What am I going to grow in? Which elements of the business can I grow? Yeah. So the online side of things, can you just tell us a bit more about how you've structured that? Is that do they have a check-in? Do they get a program? How have you kind of set that up?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the actual online coaching, which is bespoke to them, it's all automated via the website. They go through the sign-up process. They fill in a questionnaire, very detailed questionnaire, and that then gets sent straight back to myself. I analyze the questionnaire. We set up an initial client call just to, as I say to them, peel the onion back a little bit further, find out a little bit more about them, and then we give kind of 72 hours to then go away and devise their bespoke programs. We use TrueCoach to manage the programs, which has been an absolute godsend for us, actually.
Yeah.
I started the online coaching business without that, and I was doing it all on Excel spreadsheets, and it honestly, Ben, it was an absolute nightmare. So it really does improve the user experience with the videos and dialogue that I can have as well, because also, as mentioned, with clients signing up globally, they're obviously on different time zones. Yes. And I was finding it really hard to disconnect and switch off, because I was giving these guys and girls my personal number, and I'm getting messages at 11:30 at night. And the nature of the beast, I have to reply. I have to add value.
Yeah.
I cannot switch off. If I get a message there is, even if someone said to me, "Oh, well, don't message or message tomorrow," that there's no reality to that for me. So True Coach has been great for that. And then, so they get their own individualized programs. They have a weekly checklist that's embedded into the website as well. They get their own member dashboard on the website with, recipe guides, eating out guides, loads of information on there for them, videos. We've also just started, as part of the Ultimate Home Workout Guide, a private members Facebook group that we've got 100 individuals on that, which has been great. And two of my coaches have been absolutely brilliant. I want to give them a shout out, Coach Dom and Coach Matt. I owe them a lot because they've been really taking center stage with the kind of day-to-day on that.
Yeah.
And we've got building a really engaging community. So we've done like a 21-day Kickstart challenge for everyone. It's completely free for any purchase with the Ultimate Home Workout Guide, which, by the way, it's under £20. It is so low cost.
Yeah.
So that's been good as well. And so that's it really. And then we hold people accountable with weekly check-ins as well. We ask for fasted check weights every Monday morning. They have loads of markers on the weekly checklist that they go through, from resting heart rate, macros. Have they managed to hit their daily targets from a nutritional point of view? So it's pretty full on, and it is for the right. It takes the right individual who's really looking to make a change. There's a bit of a vetting process, to be honest, Ben. We don't just take on passengers, and the price point's not, it's not low. It's, people have to invest a bit more. It's just certainly more than the £20 I just mentioned, because it is individualized. So it works both ways.
So just on that, because I know we've spoken about, let's call it boundaries, of client to coach. Have you kind of do you set boundaries, as in, do you tell your online clients, don't message me after 7 or whatever, because I'll say the word so that you don't have to. Generally, from my personal experience as well, that those online clients, if you guys are setting it up with regards to online coaching, like Dan's talking about, will generally be more needier than your one-to-one face-to-face clients, in my opinion. Okay, because they're not getting that as much face-to-face interaction. They'll have questions constantly. So, how have you set those boundaries up?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Ben. And actually, sometimes I'm as bad, if not worse, than the client, because I'm constantly thinking, if I haven't spoken to or had any dialogue with this individual for the last 3 or 4 days, and maybe I haven't got their notifications on the True Coach app to say that they've carried out the program that I've devised for them, I then get worried of thinking, am I adding enough value here to this individual? So it works both ways. But yes, I do say to them almost jokingly on that initial client call, and I'll say, look, especially through these times, I've really improved the offering for my online clients because I have more time. So I give them my personal number. We do weekly check-ins on the phone as well, which has been really valuable, I find. And their feedback's been awesome on that. But I do almost say it a bit tongue-in-cheek and a bit jokingly at the start to say, don't message me or call me after sort of 7 years. We have a bit of a joke about it, but I do still say that because I have to, because I've done this, 14 plus years now, and I'm all in, I'm all in the client that I take on board, which is why there is a vetting process for the individuals to make sure they are aligned with my core values and beliefs as a practitioner. I kind of have to say that, and I've only really over the last 12 months realized that I need to be a bit smarter with things and take care of number one, because in essence, if I'm run down or if I'm starting to resent my day to day and dragging my heels, my product is going to suffer, and in essence, the client is then going to suffer.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Message for young coaches as well, bud, is take care of number one. Work hard, work really hard, but have your systems in place, have your daily non-negotiables in place that allow you to execute and lead these kind of high performance habits that I mentioned before.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, for the guys that are just starting off, I always look at it this way, that you are now looking at a different price point than your PT. So if you're charging, for easy maths for my head on a Friday, 150 quid a month, just be aware that if you're spending 20 hours a month on that client, you're now making £7.50 an hour or whatever. So just be aware of that. Doesn't mean that you can't spend time. Just put it into chunks, systemize it. Could it be a voice note rather than typing out a big email? That depends on your values or whatever, on how you communicate. But there are ways to do it, and there are ways to obviously grow it, like Dan has. So, okay, looking at then virtual training. And when I say virtual, so we differentiate the digital aspect of online coaching, like we're speaking about now. Virtual training meaning kind of live in the room with them when they need you. How have you found it? Obviously you're using the Remote Coach platform. I'm obviously a bit biased, but what's the difference in, not necessarily functionality, but what's the difference in training the client? How have you found it?
It was a struggle initially. I'm going to be honest, Ben. It was a struggle. I thought I'm going to really, that's why I capped it at 12. But at the start, I was only delivering a few sessions. I had a number of clients saying they wanted to go down this route, and I was very hesitant at first. I'm an incredibly tactile coach. I get stuck in. I'm not a hype man, but I do get involved with the coaching process, so to speak. So I found, as we are now, sitting behind a laptop and trying to coach people, it was a struggle at first. I've adapted now, and I've definitely got used to it, and I've actually half enjoy it as well now, because the clients understand it as well. I think, we've got kind of three types of learners here. We've got visual learners, auditory learners, and kinesthetic learners. And it works from the visual aspect. So now I'm kind of flipping it to the client as well, in terms of, thankfully, I've had these clients for a long, long while. Though I think if these were new clients and I'd just taken them on board to start the journey, it would be a hell of a lot harder, because if they're visual learners, if they're auditory learners, so just to give context, visual learners for people who can visually see me execute certain movements, and then they're like, okay, they process that information, and then it allows them to carry out that task. Auditory learners, they can then hear me give these verbal cues of, neutralize the spine, tilt your pelvis back slightly, whatever it may be. They can respond well to that and execute that task. If they're more down the kinesthetic side of things, and they like the touch, they like the feel, they like me pulling their shoulder blades back to it. If I say retract and depress the scap, they're like, what the hell are you going on about?
Yes.
Oh, like you put your hands on them, and then they can feel that, which only comes from in-person coaching. Then we're going to struggle a little bit more. So it challenges you as a coach. As I say, even though being a coach for 14 years, this is completely new to me, doing this online. So as I say, struggle at first, identify what works best for the client. But in the same breath, I was pretty fortunate, because I'd actually worked with these athletes and clients for a long while prior to, the lockdown happening,
I totally agree. I'm still obviously training people online. And one of the clients in New York, I have actually seen her face to face as well. But, she's a long drive golfer. And so, trying to speak about type 2 motion of the spine, or trying to, look at rotation, what I noticed was that the cueing of words verbally, it starts to slightly change. I may be not as technical in, because I noticed that I'd be saying, posterior tilt the pelvis, but when I'd say it in face to face, I'd actually be doing it. And, then are they seeing it or are they hearing it? And, so just note that, guys, as well. You need to adapt to that person with different cues. You might say it twice, and there may be different ways of how to cue it, but it's interesting. But you're enjoying it now.
Yeah, I'm certainly enjoying it. I think on that one as well, for the guys listening, is that if you have an outcome, how you articulate yourself to reach that outcome is incredibly important. And this is something that we're learning as individuals now, of how to coach better and how to articulate our message better. So let's say you do have someone who, let's say they're doing a bent over row and they have a slightly rounded spine. Okay, and we think, okay, for optimal position, optimal execution of that movement, we want to neutralize that spine. So how am I going to reach the outcome of telling that individual on how to neutralize the spine? Well, instead of saying, I want to get your spine neutral, or I want to do X and Y, we still here, Ben?
Yeah. Sorry, mate. My camera froze.
Sorry. If so, we want to reach that outcome. I could simply say, stick your bum out. Okay. Yeah. So by sticking the bum out cue, they then neutralize their spine. So they've reached the outcome that we're looking for without us having to give, complete non-verbal cues that goes way over their head. So I think there's ways to reach an outcome, and the way we articulate our message, it can actually help us develop as coaches.
Totally. I mean, we were working on getting that rotation, and I love it where you're putting the cigarette out with the foot to drive that internal rotation. And it's so funny because they laugh as well. So it's like, oh, I know what you mean. When you're talking to me and doing coach talk, I don't necessarily know. But, so staying on the digital and virtual side of things then, I'm reading this unbelievable book at the moment. It's called Augmented. And I mentioned this to, I believe, Harry the other day. But, he's talking about what the future looks like. Now, I, like you, I love the face-to-face side of training clients, being there, being in that environment, the gym. But what do you see the future looking like? When we're talking about, and it may sound far-fetched, we're talking about driverless cars. We're talking about wearables that like Samsung have, which, we're looking at everything from blood pressure to whatever it might be. How do you see your position, not necessarily working with the elite athlete, but with the general population? Are you going to be growing this online side of things, more so, or is it always going to be kind of like just an element of your business? Do you kind of see it going places?
It's a hard one to know, isn't it? And I think it was the owner of Equinox, obviously a global brand with a lot of money invested in the coaching space. And I think they were very honest with saying there is going to be a shift. There is going to be a transition into more of a digital age. And in fact, I'm in the process now of starting to change my offering and potential offering. To be honest, Ben, it was something that, as I said, I've done this a long while, and I've delivered a high volume of sessions over the course of a long period of time. I have reduced session frequency prior to this happening, considerably over the last few years, and the session rate, price point per rate, has increased, and we very much do outcome-led packages for the right client now. That said, I still want to pull back a little bit further. Look, I'm a coach. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy in-person coaching and allowing or assisting someone to reach their goals. That means a lot to me. But it may be going down the route now of, if I was to see someone 3 times a week in person, I may just see them 1 to 2 times in person, and then continue doing 1 to 2, depending on the client, of these remote coaching style sessions, and then doing 30-minute strategy meetings, maybe bi-weekly or even weekly with the individual, again, client dependent. So I think there is going to be a shift, and I think from my own personal experience, it could be a positive one for me, because of this situation will allow me to change my business model further to be more aligned with what my own kind of utopian mix is of what I want out of life, to be quite frank.
Yes. So important. So important.
Absolutely. And as mentioned, I'm all in on this, my profession, but there's other buckets, if you like, in terms of what I want to achieve in life that are completely malnourished and not getting any love. So maybe it's a time to pivot slightly and say, okay, relationships, family life, and all of the other stuff that they've definitely not had much love for a while. Then maybe I can put a bit more energy into that if I do pull back from my business side of things in terms of in-person coaching. You know me long enough to know I won't be taking my foot off the accelerator in regards to the business model. But
No, it's interesting to hear your thoughts, definitely, because I think we all get into this as fitness coaches because we love not only helping people, but the fitness side of things. So being behind a phone and being behind a laptop is not being active, even if it's just pulling that lat pull down machine to the client or picking that kettlebell up and demoing a couple of reps. So definitely, the face-to-face is something that we all love to do, but it just obviously removes all those barriers, right? You can suddenly have that client in New York or wherever it might be, especially if they're in the same time zone. Okay, so there are some of the trainers have mentioned that they're struggling to, keep their clients, I guess, progressing, structuring their sessions. Is there any kind of tips you can give on how you've kept your clients progressing through this period or keeping that engagement going?
Yeah, keeping the engagement going, firstly, just communicate with them, do your sessions, but also check in with them frequently to make sure they are on track. This situation is hard for everyone, and, you've got to get their systems right. And I used the word earlier, daily non-negotiables. So 5 daily non-negotiables for me personally may well be, training, nutrition, very much an arbitrary measure, but 10,000 steps a day, my morning kind of meditation and mobility that might only take 10 minutes, and no Netflix before 7 p.m. So we talk about high performance habits, and they, you know, I know if I do those 5 daily tasks consistently, I'm probably going to have a pretty productive day based on what's important to me and my, you know, let's bring it back round to big rocks. So I think, set some systems, set some basic targets for them outside of your training sessions. And in regards to progression in your session, you know, what are the drivers that regardless of whether we're in a gym, the fundamentals remain the same. How am I going to improve this client? Okay, we set a goal, we reverse engineer the process to reach that goal. What means do they have available to them to enable them to reach that goal from a stressor point of view? What is a fundamental driver in improving performance and improving that client? And I'll use a mountain analogy on this. You know, you don't reach the summit without earning the right to progress, and you don't just apply huge amounts of stress upon someone right away. You need to provide the right amount of stress to allow them to continually improve, as we mentioned earlier with the boxer and the everyday athlete scenario. So if they've got a pair of dumbbells, we need to be, let's say they've got 2 20-kilo dumbbells. Well, for certain individuals, that might not be enough of a stress if they were doing a conventional dumbbell press, for example. Okay, how can I now manipulate maybe tempo, manipulate rep ranges, manipulate obviously loading strategies we can't change, but maybe bring some accommodating resistance in the form of bands to alter the strength curve. How can I make it harder and provide enough of a stressor to allow that client to improve? And in essence, just because we haven't got the toolbox that we've got available when we were at Number One Fitness, or, you know, what the gym that we're at, with the luxury of a trap bar, a safety bar, a squat rack, or whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. As long as you, again, start where your feet are, identify where that client is, identify how much volume they need, type of programming that they need based on their goals, and go out and execute it. You know, I think people are looking at this through such a negative lens. There's 2 ways of looking at this. You can either succumb to your environment, or you can actually thrive in your environment. And yes, it takes experience, it takes systems to allow us to thrive. But once you have all of that in place, just be consistent with your execution and keep working towards your goal. You know, I'm not having the fact that, especially, look, people, you know, using bottles of water to do bicep curls. That's not enough of a stress. You know, let's be real out here, you know, come on.
Yeah, it's so true. There you have it. But do you know what? I think it dives onto the point of education. And if we're being brutally honest, one of the first guests I had on here was Emma Barry, director or ex-director of group fitness at Equinox. And she said, you either innovate or die. And that's with every business. And she also said, which I strongly agree, is that this kind of being a PT and only giving people workouts and actually not putting time into your passion is not going to happen anymore, because you need to educate yourself. If you're struggling with putting sessions together, of course, you know, we've all been there, but you need to, you know, educate yourself on how you can maybe program better, or what can you be doing in the consultation to, like Dan said, you know, reverse engineer it. I mean, it probably ties in nicely with, you know, further education, which I know you've just launched. So do you want to kind of maybe talk about that? Because guys, you know, this is the time when you're not in sessions to start learning. Do you want to tell us about that, Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, myself and my osteopath colleague, who's a great guy, but also a great practitioner, Doug Tannehill, we've worked together for a number of years, and we've seen a potential gap there of, I suppose, you know, coaches or let me use the word trainers, people being out there in the industry, providing exercises where they're not actually coaching individuals. They're not improving their fundamental skills to become a better coach, to improve the client journey and experience. And it all starts with the individual. Do they have that growth mindset to become better? And then we looked at what was available out there. And yes, there are courses, there's certifications, some of which are very good and some others maybe not so. And then we thought, we can do this. You know, we've got a combination of above 25 years experience in the industry, working all the way through various different levels, from 70-year-old, you know, general population clients to, you know, world champions in elite sport. So we feel we've got something to give there. And also on the same breath, we want to add value. That is our primary driver here. We're not doing this for money, for any other, you know, ulterior motive. The goal is to upskill our industry. So that came the birth of AVED, Adding Value Education. And we launched that about a week ago now, actually, after a lot of work. We're still finalizing one of our courses, which is probably going to be titled "What They Don't Teach You After Your or What They Don't Teach You on Your Level 3." You know, life after Level 3. We're still working on that. You know, the Level 3s are great, and I know you guys at Number One provide, you know, great education there, and you're very much aligned with what we're about as well. It's not just about giving someone a bit of paper, signing it, and saying yes, you're ready for the big bad world of training. You know, we're giving people fundamental systems and aftercare, so that when they do start coaching people, they know what to do in terms of, you know, the soft skills. Yes, the programming side of things is important, but also, you know, giving them PAR-Qs, giving them systems, just giving them the tools for what we've done as frontline coaches. So we're super excited for that. We're going to be running workshops. I run a couple of workshops as like kind of teasers with you guys over the last couple of years at Number One Education, which were thankfully very well received. So super excited for that. And as I say, it's called AVED, Adding Value Education, get the name right. And very excited for that moving forward.
Where can they find you? You know, do you want to just tell us the website or the Instagram?
So Instagram handle would be @aved, and the website is www.aved.co.uk, I believe. And at the moment, we've got a landing page where you guys can simply just put your email address in, and then we'll notify you of once we have our first course live.
Awesome. So stay tuned with that, guys. Okay, I mean, we probably connected, it's got to be, what, maybe 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, just from obviously being in the industry. But for me personally, you know, it's been good to see, you know, you've kind of stuck to your guns with regards to your Instagram, especially. And I'm just going to say Instagram because as fitness professionals, it's the most visual, right? You know, and the reason why I'm touching on this is because Dan's built then an audience of not only clients, but also many trainers, because he talks, you know, from a layman's terms, but also from an educational standpoint for coaches. We've seen some trainers ask us questions like, you know, God, I mean, I've got no followers, you know, how do I even get started on building an audience? You know, have you got maybe just even 3 tips that you've kind of stuck to that you know, trainers could look at?
Yeah, definitely, Ben. I think, you know, social media is a good means to get your message across, and it needs to be, you need to know your values initially as a coach and what you're trying to achieve from it, and not kind of blur the lines, so to speak. And I'd say if the main goal is to get followers for the sake of getting followers, and in essence boosting your ego, then you maybe need to reassess your why. You know, in the same breath, if you're doing it to get followers to then feed into your business model, then completely I'm with you on that. And that's always been my motto, Ben, is that, you know, I'm active on the social channels because it assists my business, and it gives me a platform to influence more people and add value and change people's lives in essence. And you're right, I have, and I appreciate that. I have stayed true to my guns. I want to add as much value as possible. I try and articulate myself in a way that is accessible to everyone. I know at times some people jokingly say they don't know what the hell I'm going on about, so I do try and break things down. But tip 1 for me would be to add value. You know, it's simple. Like if you're adding value, you're going to get eyes on you. You're going to drive more following. You know, over time, it's going to lead to more followers and a greater audience. What I'd say as well, if you have a great product in your shop, but the front door is always closed, then no one's ever going to buy into you. No one's going to see that product. So we all need to, you know, get more followers and show people what we're all about and be seen in this noisy world of social media. So number 1 would be add value. Number 2 would be consistent. So be consistent with your content. Don't just put one post out and then expect to get a load of followers from it. You need to layer it and be consistent day on day. So point number 2, or tip number 2, would be to be consistent after adding value as point number 1. And I think number 3 would be authentic. You know, there's a lot out there where people are trying to be the next whatever, or trying to be like someone else, or taking someone's content and rejigging it and making their own. And I think just be real, be authentic, identify who you are and what your core beliefs are. And don't just talk about it, be about it. And I think that's something I can say hand on heart. You know, I don't just talk about this. I'm all in. I'm all about this in my everyday life. And I think that comes across to show the authenticity of the individual and of the coach. You know, don't be doing top off and booty pics. Look, if that's your audience and that's your goal, I'm sure you'll get some followers from that. But in essence, is that...
You won't get engagement.
You won't get engagement. And is that going back to point number 1 of adding value? Are you adding any value, or are you just massaging your ego there?
Yeah.
So I think what I will say, Ben, on that in terms of driving audience is your values and vision drive every decision. Something Craig Ballantyne talks about in his podcast and in his book, Perfect Life Formula. Unless you know your values and unless you know your vision, and what I'd probably implore people to do is write a mission statement of what you're looking to achieve in this industry. It can be very short. And then once you have that, put everything into that and go all in on that. And that will direct your social media strategy after that as well. Because otherwise you've got these kind of blurry lines. And I had it, many years ago when I've been blessed to work in elite sport for a long while. And with the Perform365 building of the brand, I didn't know whether I was just going to talk to athletes or whether I was going to talk to the everyday athlete or how I was going to go. And my message maybe got a little bit lost for a while. And that's then led me to have various different streams of the business. We've now got Perform365, which is more along the athletic population side of things. P365 online coaching, which is more for the everyday athletes. So the language and audience I talk on that channel is very, very different. Then we've got another one, which I don't really shout about much on the social channel, is Mayfair Elite Coaching, which works with, individuals in and around central London and the Mayfair area. So again, it's identifying who your audience is, reverse engineering as though you would with the client anyway, and then
totally
talk to that audience.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing, guys, like, Dan said, he has actually got a few different people that would be getting spoken to, right? I think if you are just your everyday trainer, and that's not disrespectful, we're all everyday trainers, but what I mean by that is if you mostly work with the general population, look at who they are, look at their personas, are they a certain age? Are they, all really interested, like I said earlier, in golf or something like that? And because you have attracted those because of your qualities and your values and your education, discuss it. Talk about your everyday. You've done a session with that client. It might be Julie who's, coming back from a hip replacement. Talk about what you've done. Show how you've added value and show the education, because the one thing is clear for sure. Consumer fitness, so people that are wanting to get into fitness, let's call them the clients, that's rising. And with it rising, they're wanting to get more educated. The whole bullshit approach of 7-minute abs, people laugh at it now, but that actually made money back in the day. So they're looking for people with experience, with education. And then, like Dan said, create that consistent platform. And I guess, by talking like you have, that's also though elevated the brand, right? I'm guessing that then you're able to vet these clients because they know that they're going into a platform that's professional.
Completely agree. And that, again, it starts with my own individual standards and my core values as a practitioner, but also my core values as a human being. And I know that I'd be dragging my heels if, clients were turning up late or clients weren't bringing any energy to sessions. These are my standards. And that allows me to thankfully be in demand and go through an element of a vetting process to who I coach and who I work with. Because otherwise, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, what's the point? I love what I do every single day, Ben. And kind of going back to what you were saying there as well in terms of the language, like talk the language of the client. If they've got a problem, find a solution, and they need to resonate with the language that you're talking about. And what I'd say as well, especially with the social channels, is people are trying to go down this route of strength conditioning and high performance. Well, that's all well and good, but if you do just train Jane and John every single day, in your local gym, then there's massive misalignment there of what you're trying to achieve. So just talk the language to Jane and John, and they may then get their friends involved because you are the guy or girl who's talking to them and helping them overcome a problem.
For sure. I think it goes with the trainer and the ego. I mean, I remember back in the day just wanting to work with athletes, and I want to work with celebrities, and then you realize celebrities are never in London, because they're traveling so much, and the athletes, half of them, it's so difficult. Obviously I work more with than tennis and football, but it's difficult. Your bread and butter are your general population that you actually can get some really good results with. They're consistent, they pay you money, and you can build a business. And
I'll say finally on that, and you can have impact. We can really change, yes, elite level athletes are great, when you achieve outcomes with them. Honestly, for me, there's nothing more rewarding. But also, we can have huge impact on the everyday athlete who really needs our help, who's hunched over a desk for hours on end, who doesn't understand anything about energy balance, who doesn't understand anything about fueling and just basic fundamentals. And if we can get some quick wins with them, we can have huge impact on that individual's life. And again, that is super rewarding for anyone or anyone's who's aligned with mine and your vision of why we got into this industry. That for me is what it's all about.
Yeah. So persona wise, guys, if you haven't done it before, a really easy way to do that is to look at your client base and just break them up. So are they mostly male? Are they mostly a certain age? Are they interested in the same things? And you can go really deep into this. Where do they, what papers do they read? What sort of jobs do they do? Because that's where you start really finding out kind of the language. But okay, Dan, so I guess the last question I have for you, because I'm conscious of time as well, but from a business perspective, right? And you said you've taken a step back, what 3 things would you say you've grown with from a business perspective that you could tell a trainer to focus on that's not anatomy, physiology, so on a business perspective, what 3 things could trainers be learning?
You used the word systems earlier, Ben, and you're only as strong as your systems. And I realized that. I got the online coaching business to, a good level. And I was blown away by the location geographically where these people were from, as mentioned. But then I realized my systems were not good enough to deal with that. As mentioned, I was doing it all on Excel spreadsheets and I became incredibly overwhelmed. And I'm happy to admit that because I don't want any young coach to feel the same. And I then had to take a step back. I closed all access for new clients to my online coaching business and realized that I had to get some external help in to make my system a lot more automated and better. Then I invested in True Coach. We're doing the thing with the remote coach. And I think tip number 1 would be you're only as strong as your systems. So going away from the X's and O's of programming, just get some form of automation in the back end of your business. And really try and improve that side of things. I think, you've just got to have that growth mindset. You've got to be wanting to learn every single day. And we can learn anything from anyone. They haven't got to be, working in the health and well-being or high industry. We can learn of how to articulate our message, how to talk to someone, how to treat another human better. And programming's great, okay? But in fact, I just did the workshop on programming. But as I did the workshop with you guys last week, is the programming is only as good as the client who's actually carrying it out. You could have a great program on paper, but if you can't communicate that program to an individual, so maybe we start going away and reading books on communication about different archetypes, different individuals of how they, whether they are a kinesthetic learner, whether they're a visual learner. All of this stuff really helps become a better coach and a better communicator that will then feed into a better business, so to speak.
And one more.
I mean, Ben, you're killing me. You throw me a curveball. That was on the question list.
Well, I mean, you've invested in some kind of, like you said, mentoring, right, and learning. But you must, accounting, just even finances. Is there anything from a business perspective that way?
Yeah, definitely. I'm certainly not the type of person to come on here and start talking about accounting and systems there. My accountant will laugh if he heard this, because I'm awful at that side of things. But it's something you have to do. And we've got Stripe as our accountancy system and payment system, all of the back end of the website. And so it takes a huge weight off my shoulders. So for any young coach, without doubt, don't think, I've got to release an ebook, I've got to release a product, I've got to do this. Build your following, understand your values, understand what you're trying to achieve. It's not going to happen overnight. I've got 14 years in the game here, and I'm only starting to release these products now, and I still feel like I've got so much to learn. I hate the word expert. Like people throw that around, willy-nilly, and I'm nowhere near that level yet. I need to learn every single day. I'll listen to 2 podcasts a day. I'll listen to my Audible. I'll read a book, which has been another blessing through these times. It's allowed me to grow even more. I've got a mentor in the kind of high performance and strength conditioning world. got kind of a grouped mentorship program that we're using in terms of, branding and marketing side of things as well. Because these are areas I need to get better in. I believe yes, I'm a good coach, but I need to understand marketing better. I need to get the back end of the website better. And I've invested time and energy. And all I'll say as well is, don't try and do it all yourself. There's things out there. I think, Ben, we spoke about Fiverr the other day. I've yet to use it properly, but I know you guys use it and loads of people use it. So for all these low pay tasks and stuff that I know as a coach, at the end of the day, we're coaches. It builds huge anxiety and it makes you feel overwhelmed when we start talking about accountancy and we start talking about, systems and all of this stuff and logo design. That's not something I'm going to spend hours on. Go and invest in someone else, get your money in from coaching and invest it back into the business. And then over time, your business will get better. Your brand will improve. Your values will be aligned with what you've set them as. Your following will grow and everything feeds into the same goal. And this is the thing we spoke before about fog and misalignment and blurry and murky water. It's mad how the compounding effect of doing things consistently, and then you break that kind of iceberg, if you like, of all that hard work that people don't see. And then before you know it, the compounding effect of, wow, things are really happening. And you've then got a brand. Well, yeah, I've got a brand now because that's taken years of being consistent and knowing core values and beliefs.
Yeah, I think, hand in glove, we've got to probably end it there. But, it's powerful, guys. Dan's worked with some of the best British or world athletes, right? And from around the world. And to say, he wants to learn about the back end of a website. So for you guys that are starting off, we're all in this together. We want to build this community through Digital Coach. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today. And we'll catch up soon.
Thanks for having me, Ben, and keep up the good work, buddy. Cheers.